Alright, that's that on that. Hey guys, hey, it's me, it's Tech Drinker. How you guys doing? Resident Sleepy Boy Tech Turncoat here. Today I'm feeling slightly more, like I have a little bit more energy, so I shouldn't be falling asleep in the middle of things. No promises though. But we're in there, and as the title of the stream says, before I change it, this is the first Witch of the Holy Night stream that we're doing since the Grand Order event started. Where did I put my phone? Now that I'm thinking about it. Shit. I don't really need it, but I like having it around. Hold on. Enjoy the background music. Hold on. Yeah, shit. Luckily, it was exactly where I thought it would be. Anyway, yeah, this is the first day since this is the first stream we're doing of Witch of the Holy Night since the the event came out, which I am in the middle of. I am doing fairly good at it, I think. At the very least, doing good at the banners. I got Aoko within, I don't know, 30 rolls, and it was the Rainbow Sparks, which is nice. I think it's the first time I've ever seen the Rainbow Sparks in, I honestly want to say 3 years. It's been fucking forever. It's usually only gold or like surprise, bitch. It's the one you want, and I'm like, oh, cool. But yeah, everything's going good. Having a fun time. Which is why I'd like to get started, because I really want to get to it and kind of make up for it last time. So here we go. Here.
お待たせ。承諾したわよ、あいつ。
Fuck worry. Ah, damn it. Whatever. I guess I'll use my power of the fucking intuition to just kind of figure out what's going on. Sorry for the wait. He's on board, she said to Alice as she entered the drawing room. After investigating for a moment, Sojiro entered in right after her. Also, hold on. There is one thing that I want to talk about the event itself, which is so Sojiro is the he's the event's, what are they called? Welfare servant, which means you get him for free, and he has his own like specific, unique to him material to level him up. It's a it's a collar. It's like a white collar called like the punishment collar or something. And I'm like, brother, is there something you need to tell us? It's probably something that we'll get to really imminently now that I'm thinking about it. But like, huh, that was kind of a smack in the face. All right. Compared to the corridor, the drawing room was unexpectedly modern. The carpeted floor, leather sofas, and a large 30-inch Okay, I guess. And a large 30-inch television were more what Sojiro had come to expect in a normal home. Oh, okay. No, I see. I see. He was like, why isn't there a 30-inch television there? I was like, I don't think that's 30 inches. Anyway. In this family-oriented room, a girl far removed from said setting sat quietly on the sofa. Aoko sat in the sofa across from the girl in all black. This gave Sojiro two sating options. Next to Aoko Aozaki, or next to Alice Kwanji. After about 2 seconds of deliberation, he decided to stand, as neither option appealed. Aoko and Alice were facing each other across from a coffee table. The clean, perfectly level table somehow added to the austere atmosphere.
当事者も認めたことだし、これで何の問題もないわね、アリス。
And since he agreed, you shouldn't have any objections, right, Alice? Alice gave one deep nod in response to her non-question. From his position against the wall, it looked as though they were clearing up some niggling grievance. Sojiro got the feeling that the two didn't entirely see eye to eye concerning what to do with him.
そうね。原因も究明しないといけないし。
I suppose not, but we still need to investigate the cause. She cast a sideways look at Sojiro, who was with those darkly shaded eyes of hers. Her voice shared the same cold indifference, making it abundantly clear that she had no intention of accepting him as a housemate.
けれど、あなたはそれでいいの？
And you? You're fine with this?
遊園地でのことを忘れてはいないでしょ？
I do hope you haven't forgotten about what happened at the amusement park. Alice's voice was a mixture of judgment and scrutiny. She was aware that from an outsider's perspective, she and Aoko appeared dangerous. She wanted to know if Sojiro was up to the challenge of living with such people.
そりゃ夢だと思い込みたいけど、ちゃんと覚えてるし、できるだけ無事に済ませるには、これが一番無難そうだ。
I wish it had been all a bad dream, but I remember it perfectly. Above all else, it was the only way they could let him live. Alice responded apathetically with a noncommittal murmur. She silently placed a small object on the table with a clink. She pulled her pale fingers away from the small glass bottle. The glass, more pale blue than transparent, was enough to signify its high quality. With crane-like motion, she removed the stopper. Even though this was the first time he had seen such a thing, something about it made him uneasy. Was it that it made him sad, or... Aoko's standoffish behavior only added to his concern. Alice once again fixed her eyes on Sojiro, who was bracing himself for the worst. The glint in her eyes was bewitching. With not a single emotion apparent on her face, she called his name.
しずきくん？
Suzuki?
Hi.
Oh. The moment he responded to her whispered call, his surroundings began to transform. The air grew thick. So thick, it took on a color and shape. The density and discomfort that coiled around his skin made it seem like the air had become words. I don't know if this is one of those things where, like, my laptop doesn't like what's going on with the streaming in this as well, but it might be that because it doesn't like when movement happens at all. Opening his mouth to gasp for air, the words invaded his lungs. Instinctively, he covered his mouth with his right hand and clutched his chest with his left, both hands appearing as clear as mud. Even the thickest of mountain fogs never seized his senses like this. If he had to come up with an analogy, no words could quite describe it, but it was like he was standing on the pages of a newspaper. Oh god, it's happening again. The first sense to adjust to this new sensation was his hearing. Then his breathing stabilized, yet the feeling of suffocation remained. There was nothing restraining him that he could see, but he felt an intense claustrophobia. Before he'd even felt the shock of the sudden change, he reached out in an attempt to find an escape. But his outstretched hands found only emptiness. It seemed contradictory that the place with no walls and a wide view would feel so cramped. Spirited away in a dense fog. Back in the mountains, such superstitions never seemed real to him. Until now. And then, he finally noticed. The surprise to be in all surprises. The drawing room hadn't changed into another world at all. He knew this for certain because he could still see the room he was in, just through the fog. As well as the two girls, Aoko Ozaki and Alice Kuwanji, watching him closely. It was simply a problem of perspective. The floor was dark and perfectly flat. Looking up, there the two of them stood. The two girls were like two impossibly gargantuan clouds, coldly looking down at him. Remembering the structure of the room and layout of the furniture, Sojiro's unsurpassed candor finally grasped his predicament. The parade at the amusement park had nothing on this. Yeah, he's in the bottle now. Somehow he was inside the glass bottle that Alice Kuwanji produced only moments ago. That was unexpected. Yeah, there we go. Marveling at Alice's wickedness, Aoko glanced at the small bottle on the table.
2日前の夜と同じ状況になったわね。今回そいつは起きてるけど。
It's the same as 2 nights ago, only this time he's awake. Aoko calmly mused. Alice, however, was not looking down at the bottle. Instead, her eyes were locked on Aoko.
意外ね。青子は怒ると思ってたのに。
I'm surprised. I thought you would be upset.
いや、私も似たようなこと考えてたから。
Not really. Thought about doing something similar.
少しは魔術ってもんを思い知らせておかないと困るでしょ。
He needed to be taught a little lesson about magecraft anyway.
アリスがやってくれるなら止めはしないし、怒りもしないわ。
You're saving me the trouble, to tell the truth. Not even mad.
ま、こっちが予定していたものより何倍もめちゃくちゃだけど。
This is pretty intense even for me. Aoko did not take her eyes off the bottle as she spoke. Although she did her best to feign indifference towards Alice's magecraft, she couldn't completely hide her curiosity. The figure inside the bottle, likely having caught on to what was happening, tried various things like flailing its arms and sprinting around. The surface of the bottle was cloudy, so that it was hard to make out exactly what was happening inside.
ところで、これって私にくれたやつとは別物みたいだけど。
By the way, this looks totally different from the shitty one that you gave me earlier.
あれより作りは細かいわ。
This one took more time to create.
青子にあげたのは使い捨ての隔離するだけのものよ。これはお互いの声も聞こえるから。
The one I gave you was disposable, and only made to isolate the subject. This one allows for two-way communication.
へえ。けど、その割には何の反応もないわね。
What? Really? He doesn't seem to be replying, though.
青子には聞こえないだけよ。
You just can't hear him. Alice said calmly, finally dropping her gaze to the bottle. His eyes stopped moving. It appeared only Alice had a connection to the world inside the bottle.
なんだ、術者にしか特典はないんだ。
Lame. And the captain gets to have fun? Aoko sighed, losing interest. Ignoring Aoko, Alice opened her mouth as if to speak with someone, not altogether there.
どう？これでも一番無難だと思う？
How about now? Still think this is the safest option? The person she was talking to was none other than the one inside the bottle. She was, of course, referring to Sojiro's earlier comment. It was her way of testing the boy, who implied that living in this mansion seemed safe.
いきなり小瓶に閉じ込めて聞き返すあたり、容赦ないというか。この子の洋館への執着も問題よね。
Suddenly trapping him in a bottle and interrogating was pretty ruthless, but even more worrisome is her attachment to this mansion. Then again, considering Aoko had invited this witness to a house of mirrors for a fight to the death, she was in no position to criticize. She would make sure Alice did not let her emotions get the best of her, but for now she was content to observe as a bystander. After a moment, Alice's expression changed. She must have gotten an answer to her question. Without any way to tell what the situation was inside the bottle, Aoko had no idea what the answer was. However, only that Alice's face was the one she'd made when the boy she was talking to said what she wanted to hear.
私が言えることでもないけど。
I suppose I'm not one to talk, but... For an instant, she glanced at Aoko. Slightly shaking her head, she reached for the small bottle.
ほんと、物好きね、しずきくんは。
This Suzuki is quite a strange one. She said his name with what seemed like a forlorn frown. As soon as she removed the stopper, the air in the room quivered. The boy, who had been casting a shadow on the wall until a minute ago, now leaned against it for support again. Aoko turned to face Sojiro right behind her, resting her elbow over the back of the sofa.
どう？気分は。
So, how do you feel?
見ての通り、めちゃくちゃだ。
What's it look like? Messed up. Sojiro answered with unusual hostility. Aoko was reminded of his strange behavior, as she was sure that he would be scared or shocked, not angry.
夢で似たようなものを見てなかったら、今頃心臓が止まってたところだ。そこはついてたと思う。
If I hadn't already seen something earlier in a dream, my heart probably would have stopped, and I'm lucky it didn't.
信じられないのは、なんでいちいち実践するかってことだ。魔術は怖いものなんだって言えば済むだろうに。
What I can't believe is why you...
物騒な青崎の声、聞こえてたぞ。
What I can't believe is why you felt the need to use magecraft on me. You could have just said it was scary and left it at that. Plus, I could hear the threatening things you said, Aozaki.
物騒で悪うございました。
My sincerest apologies.
けど、言葉じゃなくてきちんと実感してもらいたかったのは本当よ。
But it is true that I wanted you to feel it for yourself.
どう？魔術ってもんを甘く見てたでしょ、宗十郎。
At least now you'll take the magecraft seriously, won't you, Sojiro? As much as he hated to admit it, she was right. Though it wasn't that he had taken magecraft lightly, but merely that he didn't understand it.
けど、実感うんぬん言われても困る。
I still really don't get it, though, even after that experience.
これまでの青崎の無茶っぷりと、今のわけのわからなさはとても比べられない。
I mean, compared to the crazy stuff I've seen you do, Aozaki, whatever the heck just happened to me was hardly unbelievable.
そりゃそうよ。アリスと比べないでよね。
Well, of course not. Alice and I are totally different.
アリスの魔術は私たちの中でもデタラメで、もう言葉にできないぐらい最悪なんだって言ったでしょ？
I already told you, even in our world, her magecraft is considered over the top and unspeakably horrible.
失礼ね。人命を脅かすという点なら、青子の方がよっぽどひどいと思うけど。
How rude. When it comes to which of us is more of a threat to human life, I think you're far more dangerous than I.
それよりあなた、本当に彼を殺す気はあったの？
And that's beside the point. I'm starting to harbor doubts about you even wanting to kill him in the first place.
一体どんな追い詰め方をすれば、青崎なら多分安全なんて言葉が返ってくるのかしらね。
You must have been pretty soft on him for him to say he believes that he's safe here.
そんなのはあったに決まってるでしょ？
Of course I wanted to kill him.
こいつがなんて言ったか知らないけど、絶対意味違うから。
I don't know what he's told you, but you've got it all twisted.
こいつはね、そもそも何が危ないのかやけどするまで気づかない。
This guy doesn't realize he's in danger until he gets burned.
ていうかやけどしてもよし死ななきゃ安いなんて本気で思っちゃう天然ボケなの。
And even then, he'd probably think, well, at least I'm still alive, and whistle all the way home.
ねえそうでしょ宗十郎。
Isn't that right, Sojiro?
Eh?
What? He didn't know why she was suddenly shouting, but he nodded anyway, just to be safe. The drawing room would become awfully noisy. Alice sat watching the two at a complete loss. And so, Sojiro accepted his supervised life at the mansion. And that he would be living under the same roof as two professional mages. Having experienced firsthand how dangerous that life could get, he was finally at peace with the situation.
まあそういうことなら。
Well, if that's how it's gonna be, then oh well. Even if he didn't seem like it, he thought it through in his own way and come to a clear resolution.
それじゃあやっと本題に入れるわね。
Alright then, down to business.
監視するとは言ったけどどうやって宗十郎を監視するのか、そもそもあなたを監視する原因になった魔術とは何なのか、そのあたりざざっと説明させてもらうわ。
So I know we said that you'd be under supervision, but we haven't really talked about how we'll be doing that, or the magecraft that's responsible for enforcing it. Why don't we start with a brief explanation? Perhaps he was brought up to listen closely to lectures about new information, because Sojiro suddenly looked attentive. Alice, on the other hand, kept her mouth shut in silent defiance.
最初に言っておくとあんたをここに住まわせる期限は決まってるから。
First off, the time you'll be made to live here has been predetermined.
要はその期限まで誰にも私たちのことを喋らず、また勝手に死ななければ晴れて自由の身ってこと。
In short, until the end of that period, if you don't tell anybody about us or die for some reason, you're free to go.
ね、そうよねアリス。
Good so far, Alice?
そうね。私たちを怒らせなければそういう可能性もあるわね。
Indeed. Provided he refrains from angering us, that is, he has a chance of survival.
よし、いきなり話が食い違ってる。
Yep, it was already off on the wrong foot. Sojiro's head dropped like he knew it was coming.
ちょっと黙っててアリス。
That's enough, Alice.
あとあんたも黙ってろ。
And you, shut up a little. She scowled at the two of them, already at her wits' end.
話を続けるけど
As I was saying,
秘密保持のためにあんたを住まわせる場合、二次災害はどうしても避けられない。
having you live with us for the sake of confidentiality means other problems are bound to come up.
同じ家にいる以上余計に秘密を見せることになるからね。アリスはそれが嫌なんだろうけど
You'll likely be exposed to even more of our secrets, which is what has Alice so bent out of shape. Now that Aoko mentioned it, Sojiro could see her point. With their target of observation under house arrest, the disclosure of more confidential information was inevitable.
ちょっと待ってくれ。堂々巡りじゃないかそれ。
Well, hold on a little bit. Doesn't that make me being here a little counterproductive?
大丈夫、問題ないわ。だって最後にはここで暮らした記憶ごと私たちのことを忘れてもらうことにしたから。
That's not a problem. In the end, we'll just have you forget everything about us and living here at all.
忘れてもらう？
Have me forget?
そう、公園での一件から丸ごと全部忘れてもらう。
Right. From the incident in the park onward, you'll forget everything.
ルーンっていう魔術系統があるんだけどね。その中でサクッと記憶を忘れさせるものがあるのよ。
There's a kind of magecraft called runes that has the power to make one forget memories, among other things.
非人道的であるのは変わらないけど、ま、命を消す代わりに記憶を消すってことで妥協して。
It's a little inhumane, but erasing your memories sounds a little bit better than, well, erasing your life.
青崎、それは。
Do I get a say in?
悪いけど反論は却下。
Sorry, but no objections.
で、肝心の忘却のルーンなんだけど、私もアリスも専門外だから 文献を探して習得するのに時間がかかる。
Anyway, an amnesia rune's outside of our field of expertise, so it's going to take some time for us to find the rune and learn everything about it.
つまりそれが監視の期限ってわけ。
In other words, that's when you get to leave.
私たちが忘却のルーンを見つけるまで命を担保に口を閉じていてもらうわ。
Until we find this rune, we're using your life as collateral, so keep your mouth shut.
アリスはそんなややこしいことはせずに五感全部壊してしまおうなんて言ってるけど。
Alice's idea was that we destroy your 5 senses and be done with you to avoid the extra effort.
しずきくん、リビングスタチューとか嫌でしょ？
So, Suzuki, what do you say? Fancy becoming a living statue? That your thing? Not particularly. Sojiro only understood about 80% of what Aoko had explained, but the last part about being a living statue had gone straight over his head. He tried his best to visualize what Aoko was going on about, but the only thing he could conjure in his mind was an image of the mascot character, Kitsy.
それは確かに嫌だな。
Yeah, I don't think so. Aoko agreed with the bewildered Sojiro, neither one the wiser of the other's misinterpretation.
とにかく遅くても1ヶ月で忘却のルーンは見つけ出せるだろうし、1回きりの実行ならプラス2ヶ月ぐらいでなんとかなるわ。
Anyway, at most it'll probably take about a month to find the amnesia rune and another 2 to put it to use.
それまであんたにはここで暮らしてもらうわけだけど、私たちについて無知のまま歩き回られると命の保証はできないのよ。
Until then, that means you'll be living with us. However, we can't just let you wander around without a clue of what's going on. That's a surefire way to get yourself killed.
そっちもこっちの事情を知らないのは気持ち悪いだろうし。なんで、今から簡潔に現代の魔法使いの何たるかを教えてあげる。
I doubt you'd be comfortable being left in the dark about us either, so starting now, I'm going to fill you in on what it's like to be a modern magician.
それで少しは私たちへの勘違いもなくなるだろうし。
At the very least, it'll hopefully prevent any more misunderstandings. Not that she thought the country bumpkin had any idea of new or old anyway. The thought brought a smug grin to her lips.
洋館のことは後にして、まずは私たちの立場についてね。
Let's leave a tour of the mansion for later, and start with who and what mages are.
でも1から100まで理解する必要はないから。
And, don't worry, you don't need to understand everything right away.
どうせ門外漢なんだし、感じ入ったことだけしっかり噛み締めておきなさい。
You're an outsider after all, so just bite off only what you can chew. Sojiro nodded absently for Aoko's professional instructions. This was Aoko's way of telling him not to ask questions when he didn't understand anything. And though Sojiro had taken issue with her statement, he meekly obeyed, knowing better than to object now. Aoko nodded approvingly at his attentiveness and started her lecture. Her long lecture.
まず魔術師、魔法使いの話からね。
Let's start with mages. Magicians, basically.
魔術と魔法の違いは、宗十郎には関わりのない話だからしないけど、それぞれ別種のものだと思ってくれればいいわ。
Since it doesn't really concern you, let's get the part about how magecraft and magic aren't the same. All you need to remember is that they are 2 different things.
で、魔術師のことだけど、これは絶対条件として隠された存在でなくてはならないの。
Mages, as an absolute rule, must operate in secrecy.
同業者に知られるのは仕方ないとしても、あなたみたいに関わりのない人間に知られるのは罪に当たる。ほとんど死罪クラスのね。
Usually mages find out about other mages, so it's only a crime if an outsider like you finds out about one of us. A crime punishable by death, I should add.
なぜかっていうと、魔術ってのは隠されていないと力が薄れてしまうものだから。
That's right.
神秘の語源は閉ざすというギリシャ語だけど、魔術は限られた水着でなければ魔術でなくなってしまう。
The reason being that the more magecraft is exposed, the weaker it becomes. You'll often hear us say mystic or mystery, which comes from a Greek word means to shut the mouth, It follows that magecraft would cease to be if its secrets were revealed.
文明にとって未知なるもの、未開なるものは開かれていないからこそ恐怖に値するのと同じね。
May or may not be doing something on another hand. Civilization always treated the unexplored and unknown as things to be feared because of their mysterious nature.
知られたら迫害されるから隠すじゃないの。
But we don't hide ourselves because we fear persecution if we're discovered.
未知で亡くなった魔術師というより魔術ね。
What we fear is the loss of the unknown itself.
明かされた魔術は力を弱めてしまう。だから隠匿するのよ。何より私たちの未来のために。
When our arts are revealed, they become weaker. So by protecting our secrecy, we're also protecting our own future.
魔術の仕組みはよくわからないけど、とにかく自分だけの秘密でないと弱くなるってことか。
I don't think I know how magecraft works, but I think what you're saying is that if you don't keep it a secret, it gets weaker.
じゃあ、青崎も弱くなってるのか？俺が見ちゃったから。
So then, does that mean you got weaker now that I saw you, Aozaki?
いいえ、別に。
I mean, not particularly.
ここからはちょっと込み入った話でね。
Let me explain in a little more detail.
弱くなるっていうのはあくまで全体。それも随分と未来の話。個人単位では関係のない話よ。
Oh, that's right. When I say it loses power, I mean magecraft as a whole will get a little weaker in the future. I'm not talking about individuals.
汝、隠匿すべしって不分律は、この大元の仕組みが形骸化して、いつの間にか絶対のルールになっているだけなの。
The unwritten law that thou shalt conceal thyself was an adage from a bygone age, but at some point it became a law of the highest order.
文明社会の法律と一緒よ。犯罪、不道徳を罰するのは人間的であろうとする意識の高さと、それとは全く別の全体の仕組みを守るための構造的な結論でしょ。
It's like the laws in a civilized society. I like to think that it's human nature to punish crime and immorality, but ultimately a structural solution is needed to maintain order.
犯罪が罰せられるのは野放しにしたらせっかく築いた社会がうまく機能しなくなるから。
If crimes were left unpunished, the society we strive so hard to build would collapse.
で、私たちにとって犯罪にあたるのは神秘の一般化、低俗化であって、不道徳とか殺人とかは
Oh, shit.
まあそれぞれの良心次第ってことで
Whatever.
基本的に罪にもならない。
And what we may just consider to be okay. Can't do anything about that. Whatever. And I really wouldn't know how to start to do that. Whatever. And what we may just consider to be a crime is dissemination and vulgarization of the mystic. Merely immoral things like murder, well, those are a matter of perspective, and they generally are considered outright crimes.
そんなろくでもない連中にルールを敷いたのが魔術協会っていう集まり、組合みたいなものよ。
The good-for-nothing bunch responsible for imposing this law is a group called the Mages Association. Think of them as a labor union.
魔術を普及の神秘とせよというのは魔術を魔術として永続させるために敷いたルールに過ぎないわ。
The phrase, make eternal the mysticism of magecraft, is nothing more than a rule they created to perpetuate magecraft itself.
けどその原則は絶対でさ、
Nevertheless, the rule is absolute.
これを破った者は魔術世界にはいられなくなる。
Those who violate it cease to exist in the magical world.
いえ、実際問題として生きていくのが困難になる。
Or rather, it becomes very difficult for them to keep on living at all.
私たちは私たちのまあ魔術師としての命、
For us, that's our life as mages, I guess.
そういうのを守るために目撃者であるあんたを消さなくちゃいけなかった。
In order to protect it, we had no choice but to erase you, a witness to our magecraft.
そこ同情とかしなくていいから。私たちの事情を知ったぐらいで 遊園地のことを帳消しにしないでよ。
Don't give me those puppy dog eyes. Just because you know a little about our lives doesn't mean we're not fessing up to what happened at the amusement park.
私たちは私たちの判断であんたを殺そうとしたんだから、誰彼のせいってわけじゃない。
It was our decision to try and kill you. Nobody else's fault, really.
恨むならきちんと私を恨んでちょうだい。
So if you're going to blame anyone, blame me.
ま、それはともかく、
Now, back to the topic.
過去魔術師は職業として成り立ったぐらい社会に認知されていたけど、その魔術自体は墓まで持っていく秘密だった。
In the past, mages were recognized in society enough for it to be considered an occupation, but they took their own magecraft with them to their graves.
それがどう歪んだかは知らないけど、現代ではその職業すら秘密にしなくてはならなくなった。
I don't know what led to things getting so twisted, but even the profession itself has to be kept secret these days.
そこまでしないと遠い未来、魔術すら消費するだけのものに解体されると教会は恐れたのよ。
If they didn't go that far, the association feared that the distant future magecraft would be used up, and the association would fall apart. That's a different timeline, though.
自然界の仕組みもかつて天上の領域だった宇宙の運営すら私たちは人知で解き明かせるほどになった。
We'd reached a point where everything became explainable through human knowledge, from the building blocks of nature to the fabric of the cosmos, once considered to be the realm of the gods.
人の手に余るもの、神秘という未知の領域にとって魔術が最後の砦になると教会の設立者は信じたのかもしれない。
Maybe the founders believed that magecraft would become the last bastion for the unknown. For mystics, that which is beyond human reach.
それとも魔術なんてもう意味がないって達観したのかもね。
Or maybe they thought that in the long run, magecraft would eventually become meaningless.
そんなわけで魔術師はその正体を隠して各々の秘技を伝えていった。他人に教えるわけにはいかないから必然的にその伝承者は子孫になる。
Whatever the reason, mages hid their identities and passed on their rituals in secret. And since they couldn't pass it on to outsiders, it was only natural that they taught it to their descendants.
私もアリスもそうやって何代か続いた連中の末なのよ。
Alice and I are both products of generations of lineage.
さっき言った魔術協会っていうのはそんな細々と続いてる連中を束ねる一大組織。魔術師にとって司法の神ってところかしらね。
The Mages Association I mentioned earlier is a vast organization that governs those magecraft wielders, still dedicated to their field. Mages think of them as their ruling body.
教会もいろんな派閥に分かれるんだけど、大抵の魔術師はロンドンの魔術協会に属している。汝隠匿すべしっていうのも教会の三大原則の一つよ。
The association is actually made up of a bunch of factions, and the vast majority of mages are affiliated with the London chapter. The law to conceal ourselves was one of their three main principles.
魔術師が一般人に秘密を漏らすと教会から罰が下される仕組みになっている。
If a mage openly reveals their secret to a civilian, the association is quick to make an example of them.
そんな罰なんかなくても自分と血族が伝えた魔術のために目撃者は消さないといけないんだけど、
But even if the mage doesn't get punished, the witness should still be eliminated to protect the mage and their family's magecraft. And that was the end of the first part of the lecture. Aoko paused for a moment. Sojiro was doing his best to process the information.
次行くけどいい？
Ready to move on?
いいけど、その前に確認したい。
I mean, I guess, but let me see if I understand so far.
魔術師が正体を隠すのは自分のためじゃなく魔術のためだったけど、最近では自分の正体を隠すことの方が重要になっている。
Mages used to hide their identities not for their own sake, but for the sake of magecraft. And now they're more concerned with hiding themselves.
そして、その決まりを破ると、教会というところからお咎めが来る。
And if you break the rules, you get punished by a place called the Association.
つまり、青崎たちもその教会に入っているのか？
Does that mean you guys are members of the Association?
いいえ、私たちはフリーよ。一応教会とつながりはあるけどね。
No, we're freelance, but we do walk in similar circles.
単純に教会は最大勢力ってだけ。連中は頼まれもしないのに魔術世界全体の秩序を守ってるの。
They're just the largest organized group. Even though no one asked them to, they've taken it upon themselves to police the world of magecraft.
だから私たちが何であれ彼らとの関わりがないにしても魔術師としての決まりを破ったら罰しに来るわ。
So no matter how unaffiliated we are as mages, if we break the rules, we'll get punished anyway.
わかった。大体飲み込めた。
Alright, I think I got the gist of it.
よしよし。そうやって自分に必要な部分だけ手に入れなさい。
Yes, yes, just focus on the parts that are important to you.
じゃ、次は魔術について。と言っても、私自身語れるほど学んでいないんだけどね。
Next up is magecraft. Although, I've barely learned enough to talk about it myself.
ん？
ごめん、こっちの話だから忘れて。
Sorry, don't worry about that.
さっきも言ったけど、現代において魔術は無意味なものになりつつある。
I touched on this a little already, but these days magecraft is losing its meaning.
ライターのない大昔なら火を起こせればそれは魔術として成り立つわ。けど今は何かと便利でしょ。あなたならよくわかると思うけど。
He created fire a long time ago when there were no lighters. That was enough to count as a mystic feat. But nowadays, life is awfully convenient, right? You of all people can appreciate that. Sojiro nodded with a glum look on his face. He had been made painfully aware of such conveniences. Difficult tasks that would occupy an entire day of work in the mountains could be performed easily here. For him, having been brought up in the mountains without electricity or running water, city life was by definition magic. He only wished it would not be such backbreaking work to adapt to such conveniences.
お、
Uh-oh.
でも道具を使わずに火を起こせるのは神様の仕事だと思うけど。
I do think creating a fire without tools should be a god's job, though.
そのために積み重ねた手間は火炎放射器を手に入れるより面倒だとしても。
Even though we've worked out how to do it more efficiently with a flamethrower? Sojiro wasn't sure how to answer that. I guess it would have been easy for him to ask Aoko how much accumulated effort she thought it had taken humans to imitate those gods, but he knew it would come across as an insult.
さっきのを見る限り、魔術ってのは何でもできると思ったけど、それは誤解なのか。
From what I just saw, I was under the impression that magecraft could do anything. But maybe I misunderstood? He glanced at the glass bottle on the table. Mentally, he sighed in relief. He still had not come to terms with the fact that he'd been trapped inside that tiny thing. However,
あら、それこそ誤解よ。万能じゃなければ誰が魔術なんて学ぶと思ってるの？
oh, that's a misunderstanding, all right. If magecraft wasn't all powerful, why would anyone bother to learn it? Aoko puffed out her chest as she chided him.
手間暇かかるけど魔術にできないことはないわ。
It might take some doing, but there's nothing magecraft can't do.
中にはできていないけどできているように見せるみたいな何らかのイカサマはあるけどね。
Granted, some users are able to trick you into thinking something's possible when it really isn't.
この世界に生まれた以上その許容範囲でできないことなんてないの。そこで魔法が出てくるんだけどそれはまた改めて。
But since we were born into this world, there's nothing we can't do within its limits. Besides true magic, of course, but we'll get into that some other time.
私が言いたかったのは魔術は奇跡を起こしているのではなくてその過程が奇跡だってこと。
What I'm trying to say is that magecraft doesn't create miracles. It's only the process that's miraculous.
結果が奇跡になるのは魔法の方なの。
To produce a true, real miracle, you need true magic.
偉大な魔術師っていうのは個人の魔術だけで旅客機飛ばしたりする人のこと。
A great mage is someone who can fly a passenger jet with only their own magecraft.
対して偉大な魔法使いっていうのは今不可能なことを可能にする人のことよ。
Meanwhile, a magician deals in making the impossible possible.
そういった意味じゃ私たちは最後の魔法使いになるかもしれないけどね。
Which is why we might just turn out to be the last magicians.
脱線してるわよ、青子。
Focus, Aoko. Alice had been quietly listening until she muttered her rebuke, as if Aoko had crossed a line.
そこまで教える必要はないでしょう。
He doesn't need to know that.
しずきくんに教えるべきことは、私たちと暮らす上で危険になることだけじゃなかった。
Shouldn't we be educating Suzuki on the dangers of living with us?
悪かったわ。ちょい口滑らせた。
Sorry, you're right. Slip of the tongue.
ともかく魔術師っていうのは暇さえあれば魔術の実験をしてる連中で、自分の家系が伝えてきた秘技を守るためなら鬼でも悪魔にでもなる。
Anyway, mages spend every waking moment experimenting in magecraft and would become devils in the heartbeat in order to protect their magecraft, by which I mean their family secrets.
必然そのアジト工房って言うんだけど、工房も魔術的な機構が積み重なって要塞みたいになっちゃうのよ。
Their layers, which we call workshops, are like fortresses packed with all kinds of magical mechanisms.
秘技を守るために入ってきた相手を問答無用で叩きのめす仕掛けとか。
Like traps that kill intruders before they even know what hit them. It's all to protect our secrets.
この洋館もそういった工房と同じなの。
This mansion is no different.
不用心に歩き回ってさっきみたいなことになったら私でも助けてあげられないから、暗闇には気をつけなさい。気がついたら鏡の中にいるとか本気であるから。
If you wind up trapped like you were before because you wandered around carelessly, even I won't be able to help you, so be careful of the dark. You might even find yourself stuck in a mirror. Seriously, that one can actually happen. Sojiro so hoped they would provide him with a general idea of what to watch out for, but he passed, knowing that he was unlikely to get a straight answer.
枝葉から入っちゃったけど、要は私たちのプライベートに関わるなってこと。
That was a lot to take in one go, but my point is, keep your nose out of where it doesn't belong.
いくら最後には記憶を消すって言っても、それを見られた段階で消すしかないものもあるから。
Even though we're going to erase your memory at the end, there's still things we'd have to kill you for seeing.
なるほど。この中にもルールがあることはよくわかった。他に注意すべきことは。
Yep, got it. This mansion has rules I have to follow. I understand. Is there anything else I should, His eyes wandered as he trailed off mid-sentence, pondering. He understood that the mansion was more dangerous than outside, and the magecraft needed to stay a secret. But the explanation seemed to contradict his current problem. For starters, how he managed to witness something that they took such pains to keep hidden.
すまない。話の腰を折るんだけど、いいかな。
Sorry, it just occurred to me.
魔術師は教会という組織で結ばれてるんだろ。なら、どうして青崎はあんな人形に襲われたんだ？
Mages are all united under the association, right? If that's the case, why were you attacked by the puppet, Aozaki?
あれの持ち主が魔術師なら、君たちは味方同士で争っていることになる。何か説明が不足していないか？
If its master was a mage, then that would mean that you were fighting an ally. I feel like I'm missing something here.
それは最後にしようと思ってたのよ。
I was saving that for last.
普通はここまでの話だけで眉唾者っていうか笑い飛ばすっていうか。
Normally, this would be the point of the story where you say you'd made it all up or laugh it off.
いくら経験済みだからって魔術なんてもんをあっさり受け入れるなんてできないっていうか。
Even if you've experienced it, the existence of magecraft shouldn't be something you accept so easily. Aoko scratched her head as if troubled by Sojiro could take every word at face value. Across from her, Alice's face betrayed no expression, but she shared the same opinion.
おかしいのかそれ。
Is that so weird?
おかしいわよ。そもそもあんたは第一ステップから変だった。
It's mega weird. In fact, you've been weird from the get-go.
普通は驚いたり怖がったり無視したりするものなのに、 どうして魔法使いだなんて言った私を信じたの？
A normal person would be shocked, scared, unwilling to accept our existence. Why do you, of all people, believe me when I say I'm a magician? Oh, that's right. In retrospect, this question should have been posted at the house, posed to the House of Mirrors. Back then, Sojiro had been surprised by seeing the phenomenon of magecraft for the first time. He showed no surprise or discomfort toward Aoko, the mage wielding it. Feeling the probing stares of the two girls. No, the two mages made Sojiro feel uneasy. From where he was standing, their suspicion was suspicious in and of itself.
なんでも何もない。青崎、山ではね、あるものはあるのが当たり前なんだよ。
There's really no reason at all. Over the mountains, people just accept things as they are.
理由をつけられるだけの知識がなかったからにしても、実際に見たものを信じないなんてことはないんだ。
We don't deny something we see in front of us just because they don't have the knowledge to explain it.
それに君も言ったろ。あなたにとっては魔法もライターも同じものなんだろうって。
I mean, you said it yourself. Lighters and magic might as well be the same thing, right? Though they weren't really the same to him anymore, he added quietly before shutting up. What he said about those innocent days in the mountains had come from the heart. And the words resonated not only with Aoko Ozaki, but also Alice Kawanji. It was something everyone should have, principles to stand by. Indeed, to this boy, those words were an unshakable truth.
あるものはあるか。
Some things are the way they are. I see what you're saying. Oops. Stop freaking out. She was impressed, if only slightly. If this boy, no matter how much of an outlier he was, could accept the things around him, he'd be able to get through this just fine.
そうね。宗十郎はそうなのよね。
It's a good way of explaining it, Sojiro.
簡単に信じてもらえることが信じられない。なんて、私たちの方がどうかしてたわ。
I guess the fault's with us for not believing you sincerely. Much like when Aoko met Sojiro for the first time, in that classroom on the first day, Sojiro took everything that was happening in stride. The memory brought a bitter smile to Aoko's face. Why? Is it because he almost jumped out a window or something else? I'll never forget that, I think.
じゃ、気を取り直してっと。
Alright, let's get back on track.
宗十郎の疑問だけどね。魔術師もいろいろあって、教会に属していない連中もいるの。
To your earlier question, for various reasons, there are mages that don't belong to the association at
こ
all.
ういった連中は教会の目を盗んでやりたい放題で、利益目的で他の魔術師に喧嘩を売ってくる。
They do
あ
as
の
they
人
please.
形の持ち主もその類。
They do as they please behind that association's back and fight other mages for their personal gain. That puppet master is one of those types.
そんな連中にとって、私たちは都合のいい格好のカモなのよ。
To those jerkwads, we're a convenient, easy target.
私たちは教会と協定関係にあるだけで、門下ってわけじゃないから。私たちが殺されたところで、教会は助けてくれないしね。
Just because we have an arrangement with the association doesn't mean we're the one of them. It's not like they'll come and save us the day if we are at risk of being killed.
でも、魔術師が魔術を使うのは禁じてるんだろ？
But aren't mages forbidden from using magecraft?
それが公にならないのなら、教会は目をつむるわ。
As long as it's not in public, the association turns a blind eye.
むしろ、バレなければ魔術師同士の争いを奨励してるぐらいよ。技術も使わないと錆びるってね。
Now, they practically encourage fights between mages, as long as it's kept a secret. Like if we don't use it, we'll get rusty or something.
ま、私たちが襲われてるのはそれとは別の話で、単に土地を持ってるからなんだけど。
I know this one. This is Dance of the Piano Keys. This is one of my favorite ones. The track, sorry. Yeah. Anyway, the attacks on us are a different story and have to do with the fact that we own land.
土地ってこの家？
By land, you mean the house.
まさかこの岬市一帯の管理地の権利を持ってるのよ、私とアリスは。
Oh, please. Just this house? Alice and I hold the rights to the entirety of Misaki City. We're administrators for the whole region.
管理地ってつまり土地の利権？
Administrators? You own all the land in Misaki. Dazzled, Sojiro looked away. He was sure he could see a halo of light around Aoko. Like the mega rich light bending guy. There it is. He'd only been renting an apartment for 2 weeks, but he was already aware of how magnificent the prospect of owning land in the city might be.
おお。
Your The word Sojiro was trying to articulate was rich. Rich. He shook all over with an emotion he did not fully grasp.
悪いけどそういうんじゃないから。
Hold it. You're thinking about this all wrong.
私たちで土地って言ったら魔術師としての霊地の所有権、支配権のことを言うの。
When we say land, we're talking about the ownership and control of spiritual grounds as mages.
うちはマイナーだけど古くからこの辺りに根を下ろしてた魔術師で、岬町もうちの管理下ってわけ。
The Ozaki family might be a minor player, but we've got old roots here as mages, which is why Misaki falls under our jurisdiction.
管理地っていうのはね、霊的な力が歪んで集まりやすい土地のこと。そういう土地は昔から貴重で、魔術の実践、実験には不可欠でもある。
When I say we administer the land, I'm talking about a place where spiritual power is distorted and gathers easily. This type of land has always been valuable, and it's vital to the experimentation and practice of his magecraft.
成功への絶対条件は優れた霊地、堅固な工房、多くの弟子たちってね。
After all, the 3 pillars of what makes a successful mage are a strong workshop, lots of disciples, and fertile spiritual grounds. Lots of disciples, huh?
魔術師たちにとって土地付き館付きの住み家を持つのは一つの野望なんだから。
To us, owning administered land and a residence to live in are number 1 on the priority list. Sojiro let her continue wondering exactly who these 2 girls were to have achieved both ambitions already.
でもその管理地は大部分が教会に仕切られてて、もう余っている土地はないの。
However, most sacred grounds have already been claimed by the association. There's nothing really left for anyone else.
はぐれ魔術師や土地のない魔術師は教会に毎月寄付金を納めて土地を借りるしかない。ま、手よく教会のお偉いさんたちに尽くす働き蜂ってところね。
Rogue or landless mages have no choice but to borrow land from the organization in exchange for a monthly donation. They're basically worker bees slaving away for the top dogs of the association.
でもここの土地は何百年も前から青崎のものだから教会とは関係がないの。
But this land here has been in my family for hundreds of years, so the association can't get their grubby hands on it.
ここまで言えばわかるでしょ。
Do you understand what I'm saying, Sojiro?
そういったフリーの連中からすれば私たちの管理地はこの上ないごちそうなんだって。
To a rogue mage, our land is the juiciest fruit there is. Sojiro nodded to himself, unsure whether to call this conversation mundane or outright disturbing.
よくわかった。青崎たちは土地の奪い合いをしているんだな。
I get it. You're basically fighting over land.
そういうこと。
Pretty much.
ただ岬の管理地はマイナーのさらにマイナーだから、やってくる挑戦者も三流ばっかりよ。
But because the administered land of Misaki is so minor, its challenges have all been third rate.
今回の敵だってどっかの三流魔術師がここなら楽に奪えると思ってやってきたんだろうし、ま、それもあんたの乱入で急戦してるんだけど。
The enemy this time is probably some small fry, thinking this place was low-hanging fruit. But for now, we're on a ceasefire because of your intrusion.
管理地の話はそれで十分よ、青子。
That's enough about the administered land, Aoko.
しずきくんも他に魔術師がいると分かってくれたようだし。
Suzuki seems to understand the point that there are other mages out there apart from us.
危険があるとすれば私たちの戦いに彼が巻き込まれる可能性だけど。
If any danger exists, it's more likely to arise as a result of him becoming involved in one of our battles.
それは大丈夫でしょう。
He'll be fine.
だってこいつ魔力のかけらもないじゃない。魔力感知には引っかからないし、番犬以下の人間は戦力って言わないから狙われることもないだろうし。
Besides, this guy has zero trace of magical energy, so there's no chance of him being sensed. Plus, he has less tactical value than a watchdog, so he shouldn't be a target anyway.
私たちはただ忘却のルーンを見つけるまでこいつを逃がさなければいいだけでしょ。
We just have to make sure he doesn't escape before we can find the amnesia rune. Alice silently stared her partner down. Their ideas of involving Sojiro differed greatly, in both gravity and risk. Aoko's lack of experience led her to believe that Sojiro would not get directly involved in any fighting. It was an honest and rational thought. Aoko despised wasted action, so it was natural for her to expect the same frugality from her enemies. However, there were those in this world that could not tell right from wrong until it was too late.
先のことは誰にもわからないから。
I suppose none will know none knows what the future will bring.
その時になって後悔がなければいいけれど。
I only hope that when the time comes, we won't regret this. With a gloomy sigh, Alice came to her feet.
ちょっと何のために長話したと思ってるのよ。
Ahem. I'm not entirely done with the lecture yet. You don't think that was entirely for Suzuki's benefit, do you?
一番重要なあんたの意見聞いてないんですけど。
Your opinion matters the most, and we still haven't even heard it yet.
あなたがあなたの方針を守るというのならそれでいいわ。
If you must stick to your plan, that is fine.
私も好きにするだけよ。
I'll stick to mine. Alice glided soundlessly to the door. As the girl in black opened it, she paused, barely lit by the dim corridor. Then, without warning, to the rhythm of her footsteps, the small glass bottle floated into the air and shattered without mercy.
あの時こうしておけばよかった。
That's what I should have done earlier. Her sharp tone made Sojiro's face go pale. Alice's voice was so quiet it was hard to tell if she was being serious or mocking him.
私も言い忘れていたけど。
I forgot to mention something. She icily eyed them before turning away, and in a voice even colder than her gaze, stated,
まだ認めていないから。
I'm still not happy with this arrangement. Her frigid departure seemed to forebode the many difficulties that lay ahead.
たく往生際が悪い。
She's such a sore loser. Aoko leaned back on the sofa while hurling abusive epithets. Her face looked even more irritated than usual.
見逃すのとここに住まわせるのは別問題よって。じゃあそれ以外にどんな方法があるってのよ。
She says letting you go and letting you stay here are out of the question, but I don't see her coming up with any bright ideas.
譲る気もなさそうだし、この分じゃ実力行使に出るかもね、あの子。
She's as stubborn as a mule. I wouldn't put it past her to resort to violence to get her way. Sojiro threw a wary glance at Aoko while she grumbled. He wondered what Alice's show of defiance meant, shattering the glass bottle like she did. She probably meant while you were in there, man.
宗十郎には記憶をなくしてもらうってことで話はつけたけど、心の底から納得してないってことでしょ？
I thought I could convince her by including the backstop that we could erase your memory, but she's having none of it.
アリスにしちゃ珍しく他人を意識してたけど、やっぱりここに住まわせるとなると難しいみたい。
It's rare that Alice is even cognizant of other people. Maybe having you live here was a step too far for her.
寝てる分には良かったけど、起きてるあなたを見たらこう、えも言わぬ刺激心を刺激されたとかさ。
She was fine while you were sleeping, but when she saw you awake, it must have roused her sadistic side.
気をつけてね、宗十郎。
Watch your back, Sojiro.
あの子、あんたを殺しに来るかもしれないから。
She might just come to finish you off. If anything, Aoko's warning was an indication that persuading Alice had hit a dead end.
なんか状況はあの夜からあまり変わってないようだね、青崎。
Somehow it doesn't seem like the situation's changed much from the other night, Azaki. She shot him an unconcerned look in reply.
そうじゃないぞ。
I mean it, really.
青崎の次はあの子がやる気満々じゃないか。さっきみたいな目にあったら逃げることもできない。
That girl's just itching to finish what you started. The next time I make eye contact with her, I might not walk away
こ
alive.
ういうの生殺しって言うんじゃないか。
This must be what people call a cliffhanger.
そうならないように努力するのね。
I'll try and make sure that doesn't happen.
アリスの理由は遊園地の時ほど切迫したものじゃないから、そのうち諦めてくれるとは思うんだけど。
Besides, Alice isn't feeling as urgent as when I was at the amusement park, so there's always a chance that she'll get over it by herself. There it is.
青崎の時とは違うアリスの理由？
You mean her different for wanting me dead is different from yours?
ええ。遊園地の時は
Reason,
秘
I
密
guess,
厳守
whatever.
のためだったけど、それは一応解決してる。あんたが底抜けに律儀なやつだってのは、アリスだってもう分かってるし。
Yeah, that time at the park was because of her strict adherence to the secrecy law. But we've solved that for now. Even Alice understands how creepily earnest you are.
なんで、秘密厳守云々であそこまで反対する理由はないの。あの子は単にね、ここに住んでほしくないだけなのよ。それだけで、アリスはあんたを殺したがってる。
So she should have no reason left to worry about confidentiality. At this point, she probably just doesn't want you to live here, hence her desire to murder you. She said so matter-of-factly, her eyes cold and serious. Sojiro had hoped for a trace of deceit or exaggeration, but alas.
確かにあの子はそんな素振りだったけど。
I did get that impression from her.
変だね。それならもっと他の手段を取ればいいのに。
But it's strange. If that's how she really feels, then surely we can find another solution. Perhaps feeling guilty about putting Alice out, Sojiro looks up and looks uncharacteristically concerned. Aoko immediately knew what his words really meant.
例えば、記憶を消す魔術が見つかるまで、さっきの小瓶の中に閉じ込めておくとか？
You mean like keeping you locked up in that glass bottle until we find the magecraft needed to erase your memory? The apathy in her voice until now was gone. Sojiro answered with a simple nod. In truth, it was undoubtedly the easiest solution for all parties concerned. However,
宗十郎、私、約束は破らないの。覚えておいて。
Sojiro, I don't break promises. Remember that. She hated taking the easy way out. And that quiet fear was clear in her soft words. As for where that fury was directed, Sojiro was acutely aware. The pain in his chest made him regret making her say those words.
すまない。考えが足りなかった。
Sorry, I wasn't thinking. His sudden apology caused her usual sullen expression to return. Aoko had not appreciated how angry she was, let alone the reason for it. To her, his apology had come out of nowhere.
あんたって、ほんとわかんないわね。なんでそこで謝るのよ。
I just don't get you at all sometimes. What are you apologizing for this time? She stared at Sojiro, unblinking.
あれそうだな。自分でもよくわからない。多分、そういう気分になったからだろう。
Me? Oh, I'm not sure myself. I guess I just felt like I should. Even in saying he wasn't sure, Sojiro had answered honestly. Aoko was at a loss for words.
ただ、青崎の言いたいことは分かった。
But I think I get what you're trying to say, Ozaki.
約束を守るっていうことは、結果じゃなく、家庭を守るってことなんだな。
Keeping a process in the outcome. He shot her a brazenly honest smile. That smiling face, filled with blissful ignorance, almost made her smile back almost as instinctively.
当たり前じゃない。オチだけ合ってればいいなんて恥ずかしくてできないでしょ。
Now you get it. If life were only a means to an end, I could live with myself. Aoko attempted to cover her embarrassment with a quick retort. Though unintentional, having her true feelings exposed like that made Aoko a little uncomfortable. Finding offense in something was second nature to Aoko. Being made to feel uncomfortable was not. Though far from being unhappy at the remark, she turned away from its speaker. To disguise her perceived shame, Aoko started up the conversation again.
あなたを見逃すって言うなら、気持ちの問題じゃなくて、ちゃんと状況もそうなるようにするのは当たり前なの。
If I say I'll let you go, you can be sure I'm going to do just that, regardless of how I feel.
宗十郎をここに住まわせることが、あの約束を守ることになるんなら、厄介なアリスだって言い伏せるわよ。
And letting you live here was what it takes to keep that promise. I can take it, even if it means Alice and I butt heads.
脅かすだけならまだしも、ずっと瓶付けなんてさせられるわけないでしょ。
But even if they are just idle threats, there's no way I would let her bottle you up forever.
そっか。青崎があの子を説得しない素振りなのは、もうできるだけの説得をした後だからなのか。
Cool, thanks. Now I get why you've given up trying to persuade her. You won't be persuaded anymore.
それで彼女とは冷戦中なんだ。
Oh, so that's why you called it a Cold War.
別にあんたのためじゃないわ。私は私のために約束を守ってるだけだし。
It's not as if I'm doing this for you. I'm just keeping my promise.
お察しの通り、私のやるべきことはもう終わってるし。あとはそっちが努力する番だから、勝手にすれば。
Like you said, I've done my part. Now it's your turn. Sojiro, the ball's in your court. Huh? He replied, tilting his head.
あのね、いい？同居案をなんとか認めさせることができるのは私だけだから、2日間ぶっ通しでアリスを言い伏せもした。けどそれ以上は無理。
Alright, listen up. I spent 2 entire days arguing and trying to convince Alice into agreeing with this cohabitation idea because, hello, I was the only one capable of doing it, but I've hit a dead end.
私ここから先はノータッチだから。
From now on, I'm taking a hands-off approach.
しばらくはアリスから守ってあげるけど、その間にあの子にあんたを認めさせることはあんたにしかできないんだからね、宗十郎。
I'll protect you from Alice for the time being, but in the meantime, you're the only one who can convince her to accept you, Sojiro.
なんと
Huh? Sojiro hadn't expected that at all. Alice Koanji. The girl in black who kept everyone at arm's length. If Aoko was a modern-day mage in hiding, Alice was a bona fide witch from the Middle Ages.
青崎君自分がどれだけ難しいことを言ってるか分かってるか
Azaki. You can understand how difficult that'll be, right?
そうね。私もこの件に関してだけは同情するわ。
Of course I do. And now you know how I feel. Aoko stood up from the sofa. This was the end of the discussion, at least for now.
私たちがどんな人間かはおおよそ分かったでしょ。
So now you have an idea of what kind of people we are.
魔術に関してはこれ以上立ち入らない方があんたのためだから、説明はここまでね。
The less involved you are in magecraft, the better, so I'll spare you any further lectures.
で、肝心の今後の方針だけど、3ヶ月間ここで暮らす。
The long and short of it is, you'll be living here for 3 months.
当初の目標というより最初の試練は、なんとかアリスに同居人として認めてもらうこと。
Your first objective, or first trial, if you like, is to somehow get Alice to accept you as her roommate.
試練って言った今そういう類のことを言った
A trial. You just called it a trial.
ごまかしてもいいことないでしょ、この手のことは。
Sugarcoating you won't do you any favors.
うまくいかなきゃ粉々なわけだし。
After all, blow it and you're a dead man, remember? With her cold-blooded remark, Aoko started walking towards the door.
あ、そうそう。
Oh, and one more thing.
宗十郎の部屋だけど、3階に用意しといたから。2階のホールの裏側に階段があるから使って。ここは寮ってわけでもないし、時間は自由に使いなさい。
About your room. It's on the 3rd floor. There's a set of stairs on the far side of the 2nd floor hall, so use those. Also, this isn't a dorm, so feel free to spend your time however you want.
ただし、西館にだけは入らないようにね。東館は私が借りてるから比較的安全だけど、それでも歩き回らない方が無難だわ。
But whatever you do, do not go into the west wing. I rent the east wing, so it should be relatively safe in comparison. Still, it's generally safer not to wander around.
基本安全なのは、あんたの部屋とここだけよ。
In other words, the safest place for you are your room and the drawing room.
中の説明ってまさかそれだけ
Oh, wait, is this really all you're going to tell me about the mansion?
青崎はいろいろおかしい魔術なんかよりもっと大事な説明があると思う
Alzaki, that's messed up. That seems way more important to explain than magecraft. He desperately called out to her as she began to leave the drawing room. Aoko couldn't help but pity Sojiro.
せめてほら
たばっかりだし、とりあえず今日は部屋で休んだら。朝になったら学校まで案内してあげるから。
Bless, you just woke up. Why don't you take it easy in your room for the rest of the night? I'll show you how to get to school in the morning.
もっとも、私もそう暇じゃなし。そばについてあげられるのは、期末試験が終わるまでってことで。
It's not like I'm made of free time. My obligation to put up with you ends as soon as final exams are over.
1週間以内にアリスと仲良くなるなり、弱みを握るなりしないと。まあ、あれよね。
If you don't find some way to make nice with Alice, or find some way to blackmail her within a week, well, you know what that means. barely a wave of goodbye, the student council tyrant walked out. He unconsciously clenched the hand he had raised. Left all alone was at a complete loss. That is enough to encourage him. Chirp, chirp, chirp. With the sound of lightly fluttering wings, a blue robin appeared out of nowhere. The tiny, chubby bird innocently looked Sojiro up and down. The blue robin, a bird said to bring happiness according to folklore, flapped its little wings as if to cheer him on. Then, with a flutter, it mercilessly flicked off the lights. Fucking thing. But this does give us a nice little like in between, so we can probably call it there. A nice little story time. Yes. Also, I don't know if you noticed, but I am falling asleep again, which is unfortunate. Something about this that really fucking does that to me. I think it might be the music. It's really calming and nice. A lot of really like elaborate, slow piano pieces. It's very good. Anyway. Today was fun. I really like as a big I guess anime person. I really like April 1st because they I think Japan, even though it's an American holiday, I think Japan really outdoes America in terms of what goes on for April Fool's Day. It's fun. They do all sorts of wacky, cool shit. Every gacha game will put on like a 1 day only, maybe 2, if they're feeling generous, like event where shit's so unserious. Despite the tone, it'll always be something fucking weird. Or game developers will like. I was just thinking about this earlier. Game developers on April Fools will usually be like, here's this cool thing that we're gonna lie about making for an April Fool's thing. And then maybe if we're filling it down the line, we'll actually make a real one. But still, fake cool thing. Like, off the top of my head, I think last year, Pal World devs joked about making a visual novel, a visual novel dating sim about the pals in Pal World called like Not Just Pals or something. And that was like the joke, and everyone was like, haha, that's funny, you're really funny. And then I think yesterday, they're like, hey, by the way, we actually started making it. So look forward to that. And I was like, ooh. I really do hope Pal World comes out with some sort of major update here pretty soon. It's cool and fun, but I think I've seen all the major stuff to see in Pal World. Anyway. One last note that I hope I have enough in me to say is that I only kind of know how accurate this is. But I don't remember the context, but someone was saying about how like the Grand Order event is Mihoyo 6, like the 6th story in its line. And people were like, well, that doesn't make sense. What happened to 2 through 5? And the person who would know better, who would know more about it, was like, oh, they're all versions of the stories that exist solely within Natsu's head. Like, that's a real artist right there, where he fucking mashes the action figures of his favorite characters together, but only long enough for him to not write anything down. It's like, yeah, cool, awesome. And speaking of the event, so like, I knew vaguely what's going on with like Super Aoko and stuff, so that wasn't really like a surprise. But I'm really trying my best not to think about what's going on with Sojiro and his noble phantasm. But it doesn't have to be based on anything. I don't know. And this might be like the pace we're moving at, which is glacial as long as I keep falling asleep in the middle of it. But we don't understand fully, I think, why no, it's gone. It's gone. I'm bushed, guys. Whatever. Something about Sojiro, but it's fine. Anyway, hope you guys have a lovely rest of your day, rest of your week. Hope you're all taking care of yourselves. Remember to enjoy your days, and I will catch you all later. Have a good one, guys. Bye.